मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा.
The Bhagavad Gita is a book of mankind's collected experience of and answers to life's most basic questions. Who I am, from where do I come, what is my purpose and destiny, and most practically, how do I find happiness? These podcasts originate in the lectures of Neil Bhatt, a disciple of Swami Chinmayananda. They are presented here in 20 to 30-minute segments, each covering 3 of the Gita's 701 verses. Welcome to Gita Wisdom for Daily Living.
We'll be discussing Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, Arjuna Vishad Yoga, Yoga of Arjuna's grief. In our scriptural system, there are 2 types of scripture. They're divided into 2 major categories. One is called Shruti, the other is called Smriti. The Shruti means heard, and Smriti means remembered. So the scriptures which are considered heard by the great sages in their contemplation, in their inspired moments, and then given out to the world are considered Shrutis. And then based on those scriptures, the truths found in those scriptures in Shruti, the system in the society, the laws of society, the customs and traditions of society which are developed by the scriptures are called Smritis. So Shrutis are typically considered the Prasthanatraya, the 3 legs of Shruti. One is the Upanishads, which we have all learned. They come at the end of the Vedas. Vedas generally describe all types of sciences which are in nature utilitarian or material, which one can use in his lifetime. But at the end of the Veda, there are dialogues between students and teachers. They are called Upanishads. They deal with this fundamental question we all ask, knowingly or unknowingly: who am I? Is there someone who has control over my life? And what is my relationship with that controller? So they are called Upanishads. So these are dialogues between students and teachers. But they are set in an environment of a serene Himalayan valleys. And both students and teachers are highly evolved seekers. The teacher is a realized master who has gone through his sadhana and realized what the truth is. Student is also a highly evolved seeker who has gone through sadhana and now finding his final answers. So those are Shruti. The truths in Shrutis are immutable. In other words, they cannot be changed. Over a period of time, from one age to another, the Shruti does not change. The truths revealed in Shrutis do not change. Smriti, on the other hand, are the laws created by society, by the leaders of the society, the lawmakers in the society, are adaptable to the new environment in the society. So the 2 mains we hear about are Parasara and Manusmriti. And mainly Manusmriti is the one which we hear most, we have heard most about. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the laws in India before independence and somewhat after the independence were structured based on Manusmriti. There are 2 laws. Laws for Hindus were Hindu laws and they were based on Manusmriti, and laws for Muslims were based on Sharia. So the Manusmriti was considered the code of conduct for the society. And as we know, that we don't apply Manusmriti as is in our society now, even in India. The laws have changed, society has changed. The basic structure may remain what Manusmriti says, but a lot of things we have updated to fit with our current needs. On the other hand, the facts revealed in Shruti are unchangeable. It is something like I can use mathematics in my life right from my childhood to my old age. Depending on my own needs, I'll interpret mathematics accordingly. But the fundamentals of mathematics do not change. 2 plus 2 remain 4. When I was in my KG, it still remains 4 when I'm an old man and consider myself to be a wise person. The spiritual tenets in Shruti are like those rules, which are unchangeable. They remain constant no matter how you look at it, how you try to prove it. But the application of those laws can change according to society. So mathematics, the way I used in my childhood is different than when I used as a high school student, then as a college student, and then as a professional, are different. My applications are different based on my own situation. So Smriti are like those adaptable sciences, which we can update as we go along in our society. So Manusmriti, maybe the fundamentals may remain same, but the application is completely changed in our society now. So there are three aspects of the Smriti. Upanishad, as we talked about, Brahma Sutra, and third is Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is considered Upanishad by itself, and therefore at the end of every chapter we'll say Upanishadsu, Bhagavad Gitasu. It's considered Upanishad by itself because it reveals the truths which are revealed in Shruti. So it's considered part of the Shruti. The uniqueness of Bhagavad Gita is also considered Smriti. It's both. It's a combination of Shruti and Smriti. Therefore, it has a unique place in Prasthantraya. In a Prasthantraya, if you just learn Upanishads, they are transcendental. It transcends my day-to-day life. It really tells me what the ultimate truth is and how it relates to me. And they are set in a very serene environment, as I have said before. Bhagavad Gita, on the other hand, is completely in a different environment. It's still dialogue between a student and a teacher, but here the student and teacher are also not a great master in a lowly seeker who is now trying to understand. They were two friends. It's a dialogue between two friends or two cousins. One was great, but he did not act like one when it comes to his friendship with his friend. So it's a dialogue between two equals set in an environment which is completely different from Himalayan valleys. It's on the battlefield. So some commentators think that the whole Mahabharata was written by Bhagavan Vedvyas to have a platform for Bhagavad Gita. To have a Bhagavad Gita, he had to have a proper background to convert that into a scripture which can guide mankind. So, entire Mahabharata, which is 100,000 verses, as we now know, was originally started out as a book called Jaya, and it is only 24,000 verses, but it did have Bhagavad Gita in it. So, Bhagavad Gita is the central crown jewel of Mahabharata. Mahabharata became the greatest epic of all times for Hindu culture and for India and for the world because of Bhagavad Gita. You remove Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata becomes another story of a Kuru clan. At the same token, you remove Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita becomes merely a poetry, something similar to Upanishads. So they have a symbiotic relationship, the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita. Mahabharata converts Bhagavad Gita into a smriti which can be used in a day-to-day life. Mahabharata gives us the background of human society, human conditions, human aspirations, human shortcomings. So it is generally said that Mahabharata contains all human situations. If you don't find that situation in Mahabharata, it does not exist. You may find the situation found in Mahabharata in other works of art, but not other way around. So Mahabharata sets the stage and we all know the story. So there is nothing really much to talk about how we get to the point where the war was about to begin. We all know the story. Kauravas and Pandavas are cousins. They were fighting for the rights, and Duryodhana said, I'm not giving even square inch of a land, even though rightfully Pandavas were the claimant for that kingdom. The war is about to begin, And we are now going to see a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, because we all know the background story. So in the first chapter called Arjuna Vishad Yoga, there are no great philosophical revelations. So therefore one should not seek for philosophical explanations in chapter 1. Bhagavan Shankaracharya in his Gita Bhashya, he does not even start Bhashya till verse 11 of chapter 2. He didn't think it was worth his time to talk about chapter 1 and the first 10 verses of chapter 2. But for us, common folks, context is very important. Without context, we lose the meaning of what we are discussing. So we need to have context. It is very important to know the context. Chapter 1 gives us the context for the dialogue which is going to take place between Krishna and Arjuna. So as we now know, Krishna and Arjuna are the two main characters in this dialogue. But there are two other people who were involved in Bhagavad Gita. One is Dhritarashtra and another is Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra, as we know, was the emperor of Hastinapur or king of Hastinapur, and Duryodhana and other 99 Kauravas are his sons. And he could have avoided this war by just his own declaration, but he did not. He was blind from his birth, and therefore he was not considered worthy of being the king, but because the situation occurred with Pandu, his younger son, he was made the caretaker king. And Duryodhana became the effective king, like MBS in Saudi Arabia. So Duryodhana was the actual guy who was making the decisions. And he obviously was not going to give up the kingdom which he has already been enjoying for last so many years. So when the war is about to begin, Dhritarashtra is still sitting in the palace because he's not taking part in the war. But he's curious about what's going on. He knew that on the Kaurava side there are 11 Akshoni Sena. Pandava side is 7 Akshoni Sena. So 11 plus 7, 18. So you will see the 18 is a magic number for some reason. There are 18 Parvas in Mahabharata. There are 18 books in Mahabharata. The war lasted 18 days. There are 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita. And apparently one Akshoni has 21,870 chariots, the same amount of elephants, 3 times that of horses, and 5 times that of foot soldiers. If you take any of these numbers and add those digits, they will add to 18. You take those numbers 21870 and add up, it will add up to 18. You take multiply that by 3 and they add up to 18 again. Multiply that 5. So if you do the math, there were about 4 million people on that battlefield. Now, I've never been to Kurukshetra, so I can't tell you whether they're large enough to hold 4 million people or not. But according to this calculation, there are about 4 million soldiers ready to fight. Now the war is about to begin. Dhritarashtra knew that his side is much stronger, 11 Akshoni Sena, whereas Pandava is only 7. But he also knew who is on the right side and who was on the wrong side. So that gives you a little bit of a pause in thinking what is going to happen. He wanted to know what's going on, and he had an opportunity. The day before, Bhagavan Vedvyas stopped by his palace and said, you really need to see what's happening, and I can give you divine vision so that you can see that. But he said, I'm comfortable in my blindness, I really don't want to see. But if you are really kind enough, give it to my minister Sanjaya, the Divya Drashti. Sanjaya get the divine vision. Now, we do not know how all that happened. Maybe Sanjaya was on the battlefield and reported back. But it is believed that Sanjaya has this divine vision. Not only he can see things which are happening on the battlefield, but he can also see what's going on in people's mind. He can hear, he can see, and he can perceive. Therefore, it's called Divya Drashti, because he has much greater capacity than an average person, or even average person who has an Ati Drashti, means he can see even further than a normal person. So Dhritarashtra knew that Sanjaya can see everything So the very first verse starts with Dhritarashtra Uvacha. So you can see that Bhagavad Gita did not start with Krishna Uvacha or Bhagavan Uvacha or Arjuna Uvacha. It started with Dhritarashtra Uvacha. Dhritarashtra is the blind king. These characters are there in chapter 1 and in Mahabharata, so we can identify with their situation. I may not be able to identify the Arjuna, but I can probably identify Dhritarashtra as a father. Maybe I have done something what Dhritarashtra did, and therefore he suffered. Maybe something I need to learn from this. So characters in Mahabharata teach you how to look at this world and what will be outcome if you act in this manner. This is the only time Dhritarashtra says anything in Bhagavad Gita. But he gets the ball rolling. He starts the dialogue. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamakaha pandavaha cha eva kimakurvata sanjaya. Very simple meaning. At the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is Dharma kshetra, a field to exercise your dharma. That's a Dharma kshetra. For you and I, our workplace is a Dharma kshetra. My dharma is an architect. I can only practice next door in NBG architecture. That's the Dharma kshetra for architect Nilbhat, not vision center. Wherever I can practice my dharma is my Dharma kshetra. For Kshatriyas, fighting a righteous war is dharma, and therefore Kurukshetra is Dharma kshetra. Samaveta yuyutsavaha. They are assembled together and very anxious to fight. Mamakaha pandavaha cha eva. Mine and Pandava. The operative word here is mamakaha. It indicates his worldview. Mine and yours. Mamakaha Pandava. This is how we live our life. Our life is, this is me and mine, rest is the world. I am constant in a competition with that. So even though both were the descendants of Kuru, they don't call the Pandu's sons as Kauravas. Only Dhritarashtra and Kauravas. Description right there. Pandu's sons, okay. Pandavaha. Mine are Kauravaha. Kuru's descendants. Establishing the right. Whose right it is on the Kuru's kingdom. Mamakaha Pandava. Mine, my children and Pandu's children, what are they doing? Simple question, and then Sanjay gives the comment. So rest of the Bhagavad Gita we heard through Sanjaya's vision. What Sanjaya saw and understood is what we heard. Even though it's a Bhagavan Uvacha, it is Sanjaya saying what Bhagavan said. And so Arjuna Uvacha is Sanjaya saying what Arjuna said. And in the end he concludes what will happen. So Sanjaya Uvacha. Drushtva tu Pandavanikam vyudham Duryodhana tada Acharyam upasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit. Duryodhana is addressed as Raja, effective king. He was the one who was in charge of this war. So he was the effective king, and therefore Sanjay addressed him as Raja. Having seen the army of the Pandavas drawn up in a battle array, King Duryodhana then approached his teacher Drona and spoke these words. Now we are seeing the activity. Both armies are facing each other. They are ready, but war is not declared yet, so therefore they cannot do anything. But Duryodhana, getting relentless, he goes to his teacher, Drona. Now Drona is not even in charge of the army. Bhishma is in charge of the army. Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, Krishna, they were considered Ati Maharathi. So there are like gradations of Ati Rathi can face 6,000 archers. Maharathi can face 11,000 archers. And Ati Maharathi can 12 Maharathis. So Drona was one of those. Bhishma and Drona were way above the normal Maharathis. So he goes to Drona. All of them learned this art of warfare from Drona. So he goes to Drona and says, Pasyetam Pandra, O teacher, look at this mighty army of the sons of Pandu, arrayed by the son of Drupada, one who has arranged war formation, thy wise disciple. A little jab at Drona. Had you not given this knowledge to Drupad's son and Pandu's sons, we won't be in this situation right now. Also be careful, because what you know, he also knows. He is your student. So both Drupad's sons and Pandu's sons have learned the art of warfare from Drona, and sometimes we now know that the master may be getting old and feeble, and the young student may be more powerful and has new ideas. So he said, be careful. Look at the army, how well arranged it is on Pandu's side, which can be seen as insecurities on Duryodhana's side. He knew he had the 11 Akshoni Sena, much larger than Pandu's, but he also knew that the enemy side is not weak by any means. Great people like Krishna is on that side, Arjuna is on that side, and also all others. So let's not be careless about how we're going to fight this war just because we have a larger army. Atra Sura Maheshwasa Bhima Arjuna Samayudihi. It is basically giving you the situation, what's happening. We have learned from teachers like Swami Chinmayananda, this Mahabharata may be just an analogy of what happens in our life. That our life is the Mahabharata war, and there are many wicked ideas which we have in our mind. There are very few good ideas to fight those wicked ideas. So they represent the Kauravas and Pandavas. And this Mahabharata war is constantly going on. In this, we can see there are a variety of people and variety of ideas which are supporting us. So here are heroes, mighty archers, equal in battle to Bhima and Arjuna. They are, as I said, they are considered, Bhima and Arjuna, they were considered like Mahamaharathis. They were Ati Maharathi, whatever we call it. They are above any average Maharathi. Virata and Drupada. In other words, each one is commanding one battalion. You need to be careful about. Now, most of us know Mahabharata, at least from the B.R. Chopra's series. And I've never read Mahabharata because in our family, they said, if you read Mahabharata at home, there will be Mahabharata in your house. So you can't have Mahabharata in your house. I do have Rajgopalacharya's Mahabharata though, but I consider that as second-hand version, not a real Mahabharata. Krishna gave his Narayani Sena to Duryodhana also, but not all of them. I think some of the battalion chiefs, like Satyaki was one of them, he decided he's not going to fight with God. But he cannot take his battalion. By himself, he will be on this side. So Drupada, obviously Arjuna and all Pandavas' father-in-law, so he was on this side, and his sons. So Drishtaketuhu, Chekitanaha, Kasirajaha, Viryan. These are all considered the great warriors of their time. And there he said, well, look at them. They're on the Pandu side. Don't underestimate them just because they're smaller army. Purujitaha, Kunti Bojaha cha, Saibyascha Narapungavaha. They're the best among men, all these people. When I was first learning Hindi, my teacher said that if you can spell Drushtadhumna, you are done. You can spell anything and pronounce anything. So Drishtaketu is one of them. Difficult to pronounce. Once you get the hang of it, other words will be easy. Chekitan. I think they are all Panchals, warriors. Kasiraj. Kasiraj was considered a great warrior. Kasiraj is a Viryavan, a very powerful Kasiraj. Purujit Kinti Becha Saibyascha Narapungavaha. They are all the great among men. They are great warriors. Right now he is not concerned about how good people they are. How great warriors they are. Narapungava, they are great warriors. Yudhamanyuscha Vikrantaha Uttabhojascha Viryavan. I think these are two brothers, Yudhamanyu and Uttabhoj. And they were given the duty to protect Arjuna's chariot from one from left side, one from right side. Because their chariots will be on two sides. Saubhadra Draupadeyascha. And Subhadra's sons and Draupadi, Sarva eva Maharatha. None of them are just ordinary warriors. They're all great Maharathis. So the scenario is now clear. They're ready to fight. Duryodhana seems slightly insecure. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave Om Shanti Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.